Hello, and welcome to the Monday, November 2nd City Council meeting, and we'd like to call it to order. At this time, we'd have Jody Ingalls, the Pastoral Care Prairie Lakes Healthcare System, lead us in prayer.
Good evening, and this reminds me of the story of Jesus that to let the little children come on to him. And as a member of the City of Watertown, I'm very honored tonight to be able to say the prayer to that. The boys have come here onto the City Council meeting to lead this. And so at this time, we would like to open in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunities that you give us each and every day to learn from each other and to have an open forum with the Boy Scouts here tonight at the City of Watertown prayer meeting and council meeting. And we're just saying to please bless this meeting, to have folks open to new ideas and concepts, and to let the troops learn tonight as they are experiencing something out of the ordinary. Let the council members also be of wisdom and leadership to these young boys, and as they grow, to help our nation to be strong as they come up into the ranks of leadership roles in our community and our nation. Thank you, God, for the blessings you bestow upon us, and that we just ask that you cover this meeting in prayer tonight and watch over the things and the events of Watertown and the surrounding communities in our nation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
And we'll now do the Pledge of Allegiance. And now we'll have Shelley do roll call.
Thank you. Albertson? Bueller? 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 Probably too young for that. Danforth?
Here.
Manty?
Here.
Riefenberger?
Here.
Roby?
Here.
Solom?
Here.
Thorson?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Vilhauer?
Here.
Thank you.
I think what we should do now is just quickly have each one introduce themselves. And if you'll just give us your quick name and we'll just pass down. Let's start on Beth's side. Speak into that microphone too, okay, so we hear you guys.
Okay. I'm Trevor Sorensen from Troop 209.
I'm Caden Fowles from Troop 209.
I'm Jaron Tharaldson from Troop 209.
I'm Ethan Oyen from Troop 209.
I'm Joey Nolner from Troop 209.
I'm Tony Chida, also from Troop 209.
I'm Samuel James Smith the first from Troop 209, and I like turtles.
I'm Ethan Mogg, and I am from Troop 8.
I'm Kendrick Thompson from Troop 209.
I'm Ryan Osborne from Troop 209.
I'm Alex Ervik from Troop 209.
So could I have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Third. So we need to get that. It was so moved by who? Albertson, second by Manty. Okay. For discussion. Any questions? Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, none. So now we'll do the council action.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Approval, could I have could I have a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second.
Did you get that, Shell? Roby, second by Danforth.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. So, retail liquor license renewal for 212 Casino. DBA 212 Casino for the calendar year 2016. And at this time, I'll open the public hearing. If there is anyone here to speak in favor of or against. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. At this time, I'm looking for a motion and second for discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
If you guys would, if you could, when you do the motion, either, say who you're motioning for, whether it be for Albertson or Bueller, or put your hand up so that we know, because we have to get this on record, who is making the motions, okay? So, who made the motion? Okay, that'd be Solom. Who seconded that? That'd be Bueller. All right. Yep. Did you get it, Shell? Okay. Any questions?
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I've got a question. Three.
Can you hear me now? Okay. 3, 4, and 5 are specifically spelled out, but that's also included as part of the consent agenda, which we just approved. Why are we acting on those separately?
No, these are totally different. These, pardon me?
No, I didn't mean to
Okay.
interrupt.
Yeah, these actually had some type of a violation during the last year, whether they sold to minors or something like that. And that's why we actually, about a year ago, put it in place that when there was a violation, they had to come back to the city council to get that approval. All right? So we couldn't put them on the consent agenda.
Scott, do you know the extent on, and we'll ask this question probably on each one of these, at least the first two anyway, I believe that's what was the extent of the violation that these had? What was it for? How many have they had?
Sure, probably the easiest way to explain this would be a news release that we put out on March 11, 2015. At that time, it said the Watertown Police Department conducted alcohol compliance checks at 9 various on and off sale alcohol establishments in Watertown. 6 of the 9 businesses that were checked failed. Those that passed were Johnny Ringo's Casino, Willie's, and the Gold Mine Casino. Those that failed were Four Seasons, 212 Casino, Number 1 Casino, Magic Mile Casino, Winner's Circle Casino, and Foxy's Casino. So it was basically an alcohol compliance check to see if these businesses were selling to minor individuals. As far as the number of times, I don't know that answer other than this news release.
We don't know whether there were other violations on these two.
I don't believe that there were, but what I do have is the news release from back in March, so I would say that there probably haven't been any other violations.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action.
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, we got to get a couple of hands up in the air. Who made the first motion? You did? Put your hand up. Okay, motion by Danforth, second by... Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Duh. Don't mind me. Yeah. You got it, man. You're okay. All right. Yeah, how long have I been doing this? Now I ask for opposed.
Any for opposed? Hearing none. Approved. Retail liquor license renewal for Number 1 Casino, DBA Number 1 Casino for calendar year 2016. I will now open for public hearing. Is there anyone here that will speak in favor of or against? Hearing none, I'll close public hearing. And I'll now look for a motion and a second for council action,
I will motion.
for discussion, rather.
Second the motion.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Retail liquor license renewal for M&N Foxy's, DBA Foxy's for the calendar year 2016. Now open for public hearing. Anyone here to speak in favor of or against? Okay, close the public hearing. Look for motion and second for discussion.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion.
Move it.
Second.
Motion by Roby, second by Danforth.
Okay, I'm now looking for council action. All those for say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
What's that?
Application for transfer of ownership of a retail malt beverage at South Dakota Farm Wine license from Watertown Confectionery, LLP, DBA Ghost Town Winery, 1329 9th Avenue Southeast, to Watertown Confectionery, DBA Ghost Town Winery at the same location. Name change only. Now open for public hearing. Anyone speaking in favor of or against? Hearing none, I'll close it. I'll now look for a motion and a second for discussion.
Second.
It was a motion by Beth and a second by Glenn. And now you look.
And I will now look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Ordinance number 15 through 27, amending section 19.0501, defining the authority to install traffic control devices within and for the city of Watertown. And then Stanton, can you help us?
I can, thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, the council had first reading on this proposed revision, and if you look at second reading, there was a change, a minor change to that, but I mentioned that during first reading, so the council would be expecting it, but the ordinance that's before you tonight is the one that we discussed briefly at first reading, and I think the mayor would recommend that it be approved.
I'm now looking for a motion and a second.
So move it.
Second.
I think, was that a motion by Bueller and a second by Danforth?
Any questions?
I just had a question or a comment. As I look at the ordinance, the people that we're looking at adding or on this committee all report to the mayor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just thinking that may not have been a bad idea to have somebody from an elected capacity on that committee. I just want to throw that out as a concern of mine on this.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, make one point of clarification, that the proposed ordinance that's before you tonight does not actually establish a committee, because in the event a committee were established, that would trigger the open meetings the statutes, and so the language of the ordinance is clear that it's not a committee, but you're right, the reporting process is through those department heads to the mayor.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. (2015) Street Improvement Project Assessment Roll Resolution number 15 through 26. I'll now open it for public hearing. Anyone wanting to speak in favor of or against? Hearing none, I will close public hearing. And I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
Motion. Second.
That's motion by Albertson and a second by Bueller. And then,
Okay, now turn it over to Shane now.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This project was brought to the engineering staff by petition. So the project was developed to improve an alley known as Alley Project 1501-B. So we proceeded with construction and taking competitive bids. The original contract was in the amount of $17,887. There was some city participation in the project, and so after that and some deductions by minor change order, the assessable amount was $15,010.38. There is 700 lineal feet of side frontage on this project. So the resulting assessments are based on $21.44 per lineal foot and will be distributed to those properties benefited on that basis. So staff recommends proceeding with the
Shane, this is just to establish the amount, and then the property owner still have the opportunity to pay that before it would be a property assessment yet?
Correct, yep. Any other questions?
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action.
Motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First reading of ordinance number 15 through 28, amending section 2.0103, regulating packaged liquor license within and for the city of Watertown. Could I have a motion and a second for discussion?
oh, I'm sorry. Only first read, but turn it over to Stanton. And tell
Okay.
Stanton. Give it to Stanton.
Okay, I'm gonna give it to Stanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the council recalls, during the last work session, a conversation was whether or not the city should consider amending the ordinance, which currently prohibits on-sale licensees from selling any kind of distilled spirits on Sunday, where currently only malt beverages is allowed for off-sale licensees to sell. So it was the council's recommendation that this ordinance revision be brought forward for consideration. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
I think Stanton, there are some questions from the council that might like to make a change at this time on this. So you're welcome to, as a council, to speak on this. I know we didn't get a lot of time involved on it. It is first reading, but there's a good chance to change this if you wanted.
Yeah, I do have a question. You know, I'd like to see us do away with the time restriction, you know, when they can open. You know, just get rid of that part, have it like any other day of the week. That's one thing I'd like to see changed. I don't know what everybody else feels.
Thank you, Alderman Thorson. My memory during this work session last time was when the proponent came before you and talked about the hours. I believe it was maybe the mayor or somebody at the work session asked the applicant, the proponent of this change, whether those times were acceptable, and they said yes. So that's why it's before you, but I can certainly make that revision for second reading.
I would like to see that. I've spoke to him ever since then, and there was some misunderstanding.
I think you'd really run into a lot of opposition if you were to try to change Sunday liquor to start any time before, what is it now, 12 o'clock? 1 o'clock? Yeah.
Correct, 1 o'clock. And those times, I believe, are set by state statute in Title 35.
State statutes or city ordinance?
City ordinance is a bit more restrictive than state statute. Currently, state statute would allow them to be open longer, but to Alderman Thorson's point, if you want it to be consistent with state statute, it would be like you suggested, it'd be open longer.
Like I say, I think we just end up with a lot of opposition there. I think we're going to open up a can of worms if we do that. Then you're also going to get the on-sale license holders that are going to want to open up at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, and I don't think that's the intent of anybody, but they have they would have that same option to come back and ask us to allow them to open at the same time the liquor stores did, so.
I thought it was noon and not 1 o'clock. That may be incorrect. That may be on sale versus off sale.
Currently, the way the ordinance reads is, as you have before you, the proposed change that currently the ordinance says no licensee shall sell or allowed to be consumed any malt beverages prior to 1 o'clock on any Sunday. Packaged liquor licenses may sell malt beverage on Sunday from 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And my memory is that the person who came before you said 6 o'clock on Sunday would be fine. The trips back and forth on 212, that I guess the thought was they're not required to stay open until midnight. They can close whenever they want to, but the current ordinance gives them the flexibility to stay open that late on Sunday. Then it's a choice for the owner to make.
Well, from my position is I think we should leave it at 1 o'clock, and if the current licensees, the license holders, want to come at the second reading and come before the council and justify an earlier start time, then they should be doing that. But unless that happens and there's good reason to change it, I think we should be staying with the 1 o'clock.
And 1 o'clock is set by state statute in Title 35, and even though Watertown's a home rule charter community, the legislature and peers said, look, when it comes to all things alcohol regulation, even if you're a home rule charter, state statute has preempted the field, which means cities can adopt their own rules. You can, if they want to self-impose a shorter opening time, they can, but state statute spells out when they can be opened. Correct. 1 o'clock is the day there is the time there, unless it's an on-sale licensee. this is off-sale licensees, but on-sale licensees, if you go have a meal at a establishment like a Minerva's or someplace, they can start serving at 11 o'clock on Sunday.
So it was really a non-event to even talk about it. We should have just, if I understand you correctly, 1 o'clock is the time state statute says. So it's as is.
Correct, and yep, that's state statute says they can't open until 1
All right,
o'clock.
but we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the next one. We'll leave the hours as it currently states on the first reading.
First reading of ordinance number 15 through 29, amending section 7.0907, regulating residency requirements of officers and employees of the city of Watertown. And I'll turn that over to Stanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the council knows, this was part of the last meeting where the council suggested that this be brought forward for consideration to amend the current residency requirements, which requires city employees to live within Cottington County. This revision, if approved, would open that up to allow city employees to live anywhere within the state of South Dakota.
Danton, can I ask what's the difference between an officer and an employee?
I think it's a distinction without a difference. I do. I don't think there is a difference. I mean, I guess technically there are officers, but pretty much everybody's an employee.
If you could have Doug to come up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to give you my thoughts on this this new ordinance. Watertown Fire Rescue probably wouldn't be in favor of this because of a couple reasons. One of them is most of our big fires require a 20-minute response. That's when our most labor-intensive part of that fire is. And so guys that are employees that are any further out than that aren't as useful. So we want an all response on a large fire, and this would inhibit us to have guys come in on that type of a response with being too far out on a change for residency. Also, if we're works the same for EMS, so this could potentially cause us some problems.
But maybe you can address also the 24 on, 48 off, if they live like in Brookings or Sioux Falls or something.
Yes, good. So we work a 24-hour shift schedule for the majority of our department, and 24 hours on and 48 hours off, and that would give us some more leeway to probably even live further out and not be able to respond, because we'd only have to report to duty every third day versus an 8-hour employee or something that would have to come in every day. So that part of it too would potentially have us hiring employees that could go be further out than.
How are you? Have you had to address the situation with the county dropping their residency requirements? Has that impacted you at all?
I don't believe it really hasn't. The majority of our employees live within the city limits or within a few miles of the city limits, and there's some question on Cottington County when you're looking at 26, 27 miles out to the northwest. Really hasn't impacted us. We don't have any employees that, to my knowledge, that live out there that far out, and really hasn't been a problem as far as Cottington County goes.
Yeah, because my understanding is that they dropped their residency requirements altogether, the county?
Oh, I'm sorry, I maybe misunderstood the question. So the county dropped their residency requirements. Yeah, I don't know if they've had any issues with that at all.
Doug, I got a question for you. When you have your employees, and they are not on duty, are they on call?
Yeah, so right now we have a call-in list. It's a voluntary call-in list, and we pick our overtime from that. We currently do not have pagers. If we did have pagers, that would also create a problem, because if you are on a pager, or any department that does carry pagers, you would be required to be within a certain distance from duty to be able to respond in a fire and EMS. Yes, it would call in. The call-in would be a problem if we did have pagers. So right now it's a voluntary call-in list. If there's nobody on that list, then we just start down the rotation and call people in on like large fires.
Stanton, what kind of rabbit hole do we go down if we start exempting a specific department here or there?
Well, I don't know about a rat hole, but I think that I understand your question, Beth. I think that rabbit hole. Okay. Well, I know, and not wanting to single out any particular position in the city, but I know in other conversations we've had about this, back in 2014, I believe, when we were amending it to expand it to Cottington County, I believe some comments were made in relation to emergency services folks, like picking someone out like a circulation person at the library. Is it essential that they live within a certain geographic distance from their place of employment, as opposed to a life safety person who, to Doug's point, might need to respond? But I think if the city wants to single out, or maybe that's the poor choice of words, but make distinctions between classes of employees, you know, I guess where would you start and where would you end? If at the airport, you know, you may say, hey, if there's a snow event and the plane needs to leave, that's an essential person, and they ought not to be living in Mobridge.
Well, that was the question I wanted to know, is it a cascade situation of, you know, one thing after another?
Stan, can't we put language in here that this doesn't supersede what a job description, so that this applies unless their job description supersedes that? Something to that effect, so then the fire department could have control of that?
Well, yeah, we could. I think the only thing you'd want to avoid is if somebody came to work and their offer of employment didn't say, oh, by the way, so they're already in the city employ, and then we're sort of changing the rules midstream. But I think moving forward, we could include language like that in future employees, but I think with working with Doug and his command staff, if you're going to make a distinction between fire and maybe police, or whatever distinction you can make, maybe we could sit down and enter into some memorandum of understanding with those collective bargaining units that look, if you're living within Cottington County today, you're going to agree to not change.
I understand, Doug. I understand where you're coming from. And right now, the farthest point in the county is approximately what distance? 28?
27, 28 miles, somewhere in that range, yeah.
Maybe what we should do is, instead of going statewide on this, maybe what we should be doing is talk about a 28-mile radius of Watertown. Or 30, some number, I don't care. But if we're already dealing with 28 one way, why not deal with it on a circular basis and leave it at that then? Because we're already dealing with the 28 miles now. And, you know, we've got communities that are supporting this community every day, and certainly well within the 28-mile distance. And if they've got people there that would be good employees for the city of Watertown, I don't want to miss that opportunity. So maybe instead of the statewide allowance, maybe we should open it up and just and go to a 28-mile radius, and that's just a thought.
And I think that's been discussed, you know, to go with the radius. You know, it's just a matter if we go 27 miles, 30 miles, or 40 miles, whatever the council really wants to look at, we can put that and have Stanton revise this ordinance. So maybe tomorrow just send me an email where you're all kind of standing on for the mileage. And Doug's, you got to be okay with that. I mean, with the 27 and.
You know, I probably don't have much room to defend it when we've already got 27 miles up north, and do I see a lot of my employees moving out to the outer limits of the 28 miles? Probably not. So.
But they're pretty limited at this point of where they could go, or if we open up to the state, it's a whole different thing, I think. So you said that they're somewhat required to respond within 20 minutes?
Well, you know, the thing is, like I said, currently we don't have pagers. If we ever did go to a pager type system, they would have to make plans. If they did live out 28 miles, they would have to make plans to be closer than that, possibly, if they were if they were carrying a pager, to be there within reason. But
Right. And
currently,
you know-
we have 28 miles now, so it wouldn't.
Yeah.
It
One
wouldn't
of
make a
the thing,
difference.
one of the things also, Doug, I know that Mike Berger's not really in favor of this at the wastewater plant. He's got 3-4 employees there that is on call, you know, most of the time. And if there's a problem at the wastewater plant, you know, somebody's gonna get called in. And for them to be out 25 miles, or I know they have that ability right now, but we don't have anybody out that far. But they do have to carry their phones, they have to carry that, and they can be called in. And we expect them there. If there's a problem, if there's lights that go off and we have red lights, we need to get this taken care of. And until you as a council allow me to put red lights on our cars, which would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? You know?
Yeah, it would.
But anyhow, I think we really need to look at this a little heavier than right now. And I would say we need to tweak it before it comes to second reading.
Mayor, we have some other folks here too. I think the police department might be wanting to represent just a little bit tonight as well as the street department. Is Rob here? Okay, we talked earlier today about some of the challenges they might encounter with this. Obviously, weather is the big thing we got to contend with here, road closures, that kind of thing. So if we could accommodate them just to speak their piece a little bit on this, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have spoke with Chief McPeak this afternoon about this proposed ordinance. Chief McPeak's main concern was inclement weather. Should we get a snowstorm and we have an employee that lives, 15, 20 miles out, are they going to be able to report for work, or are they going to have to take a day of vacation or something that day, which would then in turn cause us to, bring in overtime for another employee to fill that position. Other than that, we really don't have any major concerns or disagreements with the ordinance. Our main concern is weather. I would say that I do have a communications officer that drives in the Wallace area just about every day, and I can't recall that she has never made it to work. So for us, it's just one of those deals that's the only thing we'd be concerned about is weather.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, kind of the same deal. As far we clean the streets and stuff when it snows, I need my guys there. The closer they are, the better, I guess, for our department. But and then also we do have. There's always a guy on call every night. So if you have a big tree that falls over, the PD in the middle of the night will call our on-call guy, and they'll come into town and take care of it. So. And that does happen quite often, where one of my guys will get called in during the week for various things and to take care of that. And if they're out a ways, it's going to take some time to respond to that. So, and the snow, that's probably the biggest thing, snow and ice. So.
Okay, I think what we'll do is at our next department head, we're going to have that discussion with each and every one of you so that we know where we stand on that. So
I
we'll
do
go
have
that
one
direction.
I do have one quick question. If a person is on call and they get called in, when does the clock start?
Currently when they punch in, when they come to the street department and punch in.
Okay, so if they're on call, they don't, as soon as they get the call, they're not on the clock, are they?
Not necessarily. That's kind of not the way things are going right now during our negotiations, and that'll be something we have to talk about. Fair enough? Is that a fair enough answer, Stanton? Okay, just so you know. All right, let's move on.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
First reading of ordinance number 15 through 30, amending section 6.0301, regulating monuments at Mount Hope Cemetery within and for the city of Watertown.
Is Tom in the audience? Tom, come on up here, will you? Thanks. You're hiding behind that pole.
If you could just fill us in a little bit on what's going on.
Okay, we have an ordinance that says that the monuments have to be made out of granite. What the monument salespeople are doing is they want to change that to, they can use like a quartzite. And that's where we are.
And if you would, Tom, introduce yourself to everybody in the...
Tom Weeks, I'm the Watertown Mount Hope, the cemetery manager. Been out there for 22 years. This ordinance that we're talking about has been on the books for longer than I've been there. It's just, they want to change it.
Tom, what is the reason for that? Why is it that they made it exclusive to granite? Any idea why?
It was just it was on the books when I took over as the manager.
One of the things I understood from another cemetery experience was that it was durability. It was how it lasted. If somebody looks at some of those really, really old headstones that have crumbled and kind of been pockmarked over time. So the idea was to go with the kind of material that would not have that happen to. That's where that came from.
And just for your information, the other cemetery in town changed their policy to allow these just recently.
Yeah, that's the second question I have, is the longevity of it. Is it gonna be as good?
I don't know. Buck from the Monument Works is here.
Yeah, if you're talking, if you
Come on up.
if you're talking quartz, you're looking at similar, you're saying maybe like a limestone or something that's soft than weathers, but these other stone products, it just gives you some more opportunity to offer something maybe in other colors or than just a straight granite and things.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I'm Buck Kraus. I work for Watertown Monument Works, and I've been there since 1981. And the issue has kind of come to the forefront because this quartzite material, which is quarried down in near Sioux Falls and is used in a lot of construction projects, is a very durable product. It's much more durable than marble or limestone. And so, as Bill said, it gives us another color to choose from, and it's become more popular. It's used quite widely down in the Sioux Falls area. So we feel that it's a durable alternative for people that are looking for something different.
Does it also allow different pricing points? Is that, or doesn't make any difference?
I don't think the pricing has anything to do with it.
Buck, I got a question. You know, when I read that, I understand what granite is, but I don't know what similarly approved like stone, approved by who, I don't know. But do you have a list of stone product that you offer to your customers for the monuments? So you've got granite and you go down this list, right?
Typically, in the past, it's been granite or marble. I didn't bring a chemical composition of the material, if that's what you're asking me for.
Well, no. I'm talking about the generic name, granite, marble. I mean, so those are the two, and you're asking for a third to be added? Is that what was the product you said they used down in Sioux Falls? Not the chemical makeup, because I don't understand chemistry very well.
It's called quartzite or Katori stone.
Okay, so why can't we have state those three items then? And be done with it?
That's a good question, Mike.
And I'm
when
not
I
asking
saw
you,
it,
I'm just-
I had the exact same question. It's a similar approved stone, and who's going to make the approval? So is somebody
Right.
going to have to come before the city council every time they want something a little unusual or different?
Buck,
I
if
would-
we
I
had to
suggest-
ask, what would you recommend? I mean, of the materials, if you had to say we could do 3 different types of materials, what would that be? That you think would be
Yeah, well,
durable enough
yeah.
that we could use, that we could classify for this ordinance?
I would recommend, I guess, granite, marble, and quartzite, and Katori stone.
And if I could, Mayor, I think, John, you were at the Park and Rec Board, you serve on there, that I think the idea was to allow for some flexibility because the Monument Works folks that came to the Park and Rec Board meeting said 20 years ago this wasn't a common practice. This kind of stone was largely unknown or certainly wasn't being used in this capacity. But with regard to Mike, Alderman Danforth, your question, the language of the current ordinance, and this obviously can be changed, that all monuments to be erected must first be approved as to size, text to be included, location on lot, foundations and kind of stone to be used by the board or the director of Parks, Recreation, Forestry, or their designee. So there currently is a gatekeeper in the code that isn't being proposed to be changed. This is just making clear that there is that flexibility, because currently it says monuments are to be constructed of granite, free from defects or variegations, whatever those are. But I think that the idea, in talking with the Monument Works people at the Park and Rec Board meeting last week, that today it's this kind of stone, 20 years from now maybe something different. So let's have that flexibility in there, knowing that there's a gatekeeper for any kind of stone that's going to be used.
Are you saying it's currently the process that for every stone, somebody has to go to somebody and have it approved before, and then the lettering and everything else before they can, so that comes to you then, and at this point in time, you decide? Yep. Okay.
Tom, what are you comfortable with?
What's that?
I say, what are you comfortable with?
When we got taken over by Park and Rec, we sat down with the council members at that time, and we went through the ordinances and the list of rules. And at that time, when I took over, those are what we decided, this is how we're gonna run the cemetery. That's what I've been going by for 12 years, is what we decided that night. When the council come out, we had the meeting out at the cemetery, we walked through, we talked different things, this is what we come up with.
Would it make sense to classify, use the 4 types that you had mentioned, Buck, and then have something that perhaps says we would have an option to, or the Park and Rec Board or whoever the experts are would have an option to look at other materials if needed?
I guess I wouldn't have a problem with that, Bruce. I think the city's intent in being able to regulate this is to keep a nice and proper looking facility, that people just can't drag in something that's unsightly, and so I definitely agree there needs to be some regulation.
Right, and I think when they mentioned to Tom that, you know, you have to look at each and every stone and you have to do this, I think if we put names up there, we're gonna be back here doing the same thing in 15, 20 years, and they're gonna look at a different type of a,
Yep.
of a rock of some type. So I personally think that that's okay as long as we have that gatekeeper coming to Tom or the Park and Rec. So, okay, let's move on.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Approval of middle school addition plat, resolution number 15 through 27. And can I have a motion and a second for discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Roby, second by Danforth. Okay, Shane?
Ray, you want to put my screen up? Okay, this is kind of a cleanup item. This plat is to finish up the middle school project. As you see on the screen, the hatched area encompasses the current middle school grounds. It includes improvements that were done this summer on 11th Street Northeast. The roundabout was kind of included as a portion of that project, and also 18th Street was extended easterly to the limits of the property line. So this plat covers those street improvements and the property that was developed for the middle school. This is kind of at the wrong end of the project, but for whatever reason, this part of the process was dropped when my predecessor left and just didn't get finished until this point in time. So we recommend approval of the plat, and it kind of just finishes up the project.
Is there any questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
You know, I think I'm gonna handle this next one here. The Eastwoods 18th edition, we do have the plat resolution. that we'll have Shane take a look at and do for us. But we're going to, on that particular one, we'll go for a motion, a second for discussion purposes.
Motion.
So moved.
Okay, who we got? Okay, we got a motion by Dan for a second by Solom. Shane, if you'll take this platform, because I do want to also talk about B for the development agreement in a minute.
Okay. Just for clarification, I did hand out a revised development agreement to all the council members for their review. That is slightly different from the one that appeared in the packet. So Eastwood 18th, on my screen, it doesn't quite fit on my video screen, but it includes improvements on 12th Avenue North, 27th Street East, 10th Avenue North, and little stub pieces of 26th Street Southeast. It's approximately 30 lots of development, a proposal for improvement. It is consistent with our orderly annexation. We annexed this property here in recent council meetings. It also meets all of the requirements of the plating and our process. We're at the point where the Plan Commission has reviewed this, has recommended approval by the council.
Okay, any questions for Shane on this plat?
Not necessarily a question, Shane, but you did clarify the water situation at the Plan Commission meeting, that there was a sensible way to take care of water issues in that area.
Correct. A very small portion of this up in the northeast corner and on the very southwest corner includes water that would not flow through the planned Outlot A water quality control feature, and we've worked with the developer to create temporary, very small temporary water quality facilities until such time that the next phase is constructed where the permanent water quality feature is planned. So we do have some contingency things built into this. It's going to work out very well.
Shane, I got a couple questions.
Yep.
We have a minimum lot size for R1 development, which is, I can't remember, 9,000?
9,000.
I believe it is.
Yep.
I believe there's one or more of these lots that do not adhere to that.
There's one.
One.
And that is scheduled to be the water quality treatment lot, and that will be deeded over to the city for our maintenance and
Okay, so
use.
that's that lot.
Yep.
Secondly, in our requirements for R1, do we have a width requirement, or is it just purely a square footage? A frontage width?
75 feet.
Okay. A lot of these do not meet that, correct?
No, I believe they all make 75 feet on one side or the other. I don't recall any that are less than that.
Well, let's take a look at that, because.
I guess I'm looking at them and I'm seeing all
Is it the street
80s.
frontage that needs to be 75, or is it anywhere on the lot?
No, the frontage. These are 82, for instance. Across here, this is 75, 50,
Shane,
I
I
think.
see one on 25th Street. Is that the lot you had talked about earlier? And that's,
Yeah,
here's
that's a
the
70-foot.
That's the 70
That's the
footer?
only one, and that's
Okay.
the one
Only
that's
one
non-conforming.
under
Yep,
75 and under 9,000.
correct. Yep.
Because that will be the water control lot, so. the
Correct.
water
That, it
flow
will
through
not
there.
be buildable.
That's correct.
Shane, I think it's obvious you're gonna stub those streets and those will continue south. What's the plan and when will those streets will be continued south?
Okay. There is no, part of the preliminary plan for this project, it basically ends at or at 9th Avenue, because south of 9th Avenue is a different property owner. So this development's gonna continue south as far as 9th Avenue and then easterly, and there's 3 more phases past this phase that is planned for this area. So, right now, it will take, this development will end at 9th Avenue, and then it'll take participation from another landowner to continue that development to the south and east.
Shane, I had mentioned some time ago about our need to plan for a through street or a collector street as we, in this whole area of town. Is that, I just want to make sure that that
No,
gets done.
okay.
And we're not,
It is. The next phase, phase 2, the street that's will be 28th Street East is going to be the new collector.
a north-south collector
Yep,
street.
correct.
Perfect. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, I will look. Oh, I'm sorry.
What is a plat?
Shane, do you want to tell them what a plat is?
Sure. A plat is a tool that the community uses to orderly subdivide the community into usable lots. So everybody's home is usually on one lot. So you and your family occupy a lot, and your neighbors on either side of you occupy a different lot. And so when you buy land, this is how we subdivide land and break it into smaller pieces that people use and build their homes and you know, in some parts of the town, these lots are built to build the grocery store or, you know, other, you know, Hardee's or whatever other property uses there are in the community. So this is just a tool and a method for which city or governments can orderly bring property into use in the community. It's we use it as a map, but it's much more than a map. It has legally binding descriptions so that, you know, if somebody buys a property, they can actually describe it and own it very easily.
And this is all put up at the courthouse, this is all
Yep.
registered, it's all taken care of, so
Correct.
all the boundaries are there. Okay, I think at this time, if there's no more questions, we'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're going to go on to just this last part, B, authorization for the mayor to sign a development agreement with Peggy Haugen and Joy Nelson. Now, we've had numerous discussions on this development agreement, and I just want you to know that everything has gone extremely smooth, except for the part that's on the existing development agreement. And Shane did make a new copy of this one. We had conversations about park dedication. There was a curveball thrown to the developers the other day at the Park and Rec Department. I'm not sure if they understood exactly what they're doing. In the past, the city has always taken a look at a chunk of agriculture ground, and they have 10 acres of land, and they pay approximately $1,000 an acre to be put into the park fund. What happened the other night is the Park and Rec took a look at that and said, wait a minute, I want to see the plat of this thing, and then I want to know what each individual lot is worth, and I want to add that all up, and then I want to take 5% of that. So what happened by that discussion took, did you kill me over there? I thought I died. It took the dollars from about a $10,000 park dedication fund to well over $50,000. And what that does is it puts those dollar costs on each and every individual lot that they're trying to sell. Now, as you guys all know, Watertown has always been criticized for being expensive to build. That's one of the reasons that I think we need to stop, and we need to have something that goes to the Park and Rec as some type of something we can tell them to do, that they need to continue to use the existing way, either give them the land, which the Nelson Haugens are willing to do for park dedication, they're absolutely willing to do that, or use the rules that have been used for years now within the city. And that's like Scott Munger just brought one in, it cost about the same 10 acres, cost him $10,000. The church just brought in one up in the northeast up there. They put in a small park dedication that they had to have for their lot. Cost them about $500. I think it was wrong. I don't think the thought process was right. And I think we need to address that as a council, and we need to get something to the Park and Rec so they understand what we expect for that park dedication. I don't think we can expect a developer to give 50 grand for a park.
I want to agree with you on that, Mayor, and I want to back up a little bit too. Years back, what started was developments were getting done and nobody was planning much for the parks. So they said, when you bring a development, you're going to designate a certain area of land to be used as the park. Well, then as these developments came in, we don't want all these parks. We'd rather have money. So then they went to an assessment, and now they're stepping up, which I didn't realize till tonight. Now they're stepping up the game. This this isn't a tax assessment that I think should just be willy-nilly just raised. You're right. This is one of the things that has bothered developers for a long time. All these hoops that you got to do, and with EPA and all these regulations and the stormwater, which all had to be dealt with because it wasn't done with before, they've all come forward. But now this is just, basically this is a tax. I don't care what you want to call it. This is a tax. And now you're going to implement and raise that up drastically. I would be much opposed to that.
Well, first of all, Stanton, do you have that ordinance in front of you, how it reads, the 5%?
I do.
Could
yeah.
you read that? Because it doesn't give the Park and Rec very clear definition on what the 5% actually is.
That's correct, and that was part of the conversation where the language of the code says that the person requesting annexation or master planning shall dedicate an area equal to 5% of the land annexed or master plan. So that's the alternative the mayor spoke about, where it could be either land or cash. But then the language goes on to say, and I think I've ripped it out here because I do have a proposed suggestion when the conversation wraps up, is that the language says currently, excuse me, the board may allow the owner to donate a sum in cash equal to 5% of the value of the property to be annexed or master planned, but in no event less than $100. And so that's the language right now that you're referring to, John. When the Park and Rec Board met last week, it was the 5%. There is an opportunity for the owner of property to appeal the determination of the 5%. But as it currently reads, the ordinance says the board may allow the owner to donate a sum in cash equal to 5%. And maybe this is out of order, Mayor, but I'm wondering if the council's in agreement, I could make this revision, and while the meeting was going on, I scribbled in my own hand a proposed revision to this, because many years ago, I think maybe it was you, Alderman Danforth, but the city council historically has ordinances where fees were set by ordinance, and anytime you wanted to change it, you had to come and amend the ordinance, as opposed to having a fee resolution that you folks, the entire council said, bring that to us annually. We might not change any of them, but at least do it by resolution so it gives us flexibility. So the proposed revision would be, and I remember asking if we could, years ago, I remember asking, while we were doing this, shouldn't we include this park dedication as part of that annual fee resolution? I remember that conversation I had with Roger Adams and probably some other folks on the board. But the way the language currently reads, what I would suggest is the council consider revising it to say the board, and that means the Park and Rec Board, may recommend the owner donate a sum in cash as established by resolution of the city council, which is something I proposed years ago, and it would be a simple change, and that way, to the mayor's point, or to your point, it's not going to be a moving target. Every year you're going to get a chance to look at it. Is it a sum based on the total land area? How would you fix that? But I think if there's an annual fee resolution, like there are with so many other fees that the council imposes for building permits, sign permits, et cetera, that this is something you could look at annually, and if it needs to be changed, you can.
I don't disagree that it needs to be changed. It probably does. It kind of caught us off guard at the Park and Rec meeting, that this came before us less than a week before it's going to come to the council meeting for park dedication. The fee structure needs to be changed, and I'll agree with that. However, usually what takes place is when a developer on this has a piece of property that they want to give us, it's usually some undevelopable scrap of land that has a poor slope or has whatever wrong with it that they can't develop for anything else, and that's what the city ends up with as parkland. I think this process probably needs to take place way earlier in the process, when they come up to City Hall and they want to plat a piece of property, that's when the park or the park area needs to be selected. And we probably even need to go back farther than that to our comprehensive land use plan that we put together with First District. We need to select areas around the community where we put the parks. Rather than every little piece of property we bring in, we think we need a piece of park property. So we gotta probably get with First District, work that into the plan so we have these designated areas throughout the community as we continue to grow. And then we won't run into a lot of these issues with getting scraps or what's left.
I would agree with that, John, and I would agree to it almost entirely. The only reason that I think a lot of it comes back to us as unusable land for them is because we expect that that's going to be some type of a retention or a detention pond, and that's one of the uses that we've had all along for these, is that's where the water goes, so we can hold it back so it doesn't flood the neighbors. So I really agree. We need to look at this as more of a land management plan. Where do we want our parks established? Do we want all these little tiny parks that the Park and Rec is out there mowing and trying to get taken care of? And I think that would be a good thing.
How do we get this process started with First District to get this in place so we don't
Well,
run into this problem?
I'm sorry, I think maybe what you do is the mayor, when he sits down with them to talk about their scope of their work for the comprehensive land use plan, that needs to be part of it, that First District, you assist the city in adopting the comprehensive land use plan. We want you to always make certain that part of that adoption process includes a description of where in other kinds of development occurs. First District comes up with where industrial dirt should be, where commercial land, residential. That's part of the comprehensive land use plan. They also need to include a component, if they're not, a whole lot more detail of where does it make sense to have parks, so developers can plan accordingly.
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think originally this was so that we would assure ourselves when people did develop that there was usable property for parks. Okay, not necessarily that we needed them in that space every time somebody did a development. But I agree with what John's saying. I think that should be and definitely be part of the scope of work for, now, and I think they just finished, that, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw Pat Shriver walk in. They just finished the comprehensive land use plan. So I think if we're gonna do something now, we'd have to revisit that, which you can do. You can do that, so.
I would disagree, though, that you have all these little parcels coming in as parks. Those parcels are retention, which are required, and the parks aren't accepting that as part of the 5%. They're accepting cash instead, because they don't want them as a park. So I think you're mixing things up here. They're not, those retention ponds aren't getting counted as toward their park donation. They've got that they have to give up, which is part of it. Now they have to give up either a parcel or give up the cash, and now you're saying you're going to raise the cash sum. And I understand the concept of, okay, instead of you having a park, this isn't big enough. If everybody puts a piece into it, realistically what could happen is the next developer comes along, has a small parcel, and this is where the best part for a park is, then the city should take some of that money they assess from somebody else and buy some property for that then, because that's what I think should be done.
Bill, I think I agree with you. I think that if we do plan it, we gotta pay, I think we're gonna have to pay for it. I don't see how we could do this.
And,
If
you know,
we
and
do-
we're-
Even if we do plan it, if we do plan with comprehensive land use plan and we set aside areas, developers still have the option to purchase that
yeah, right.
unless we do.
Yeah, instead of, because they're gonna look at and try to get the best buck out of the
That's
space
right.
that they got, and if the city thinks that is a better place for a park, then we should cough up for it. We're taxing them and taking the money for that in the first place.
Okay, then, question quick, back to the mayor's point. Where do we stand with this particular resolution then, development agreement? Is that $50,000 assessment part of this right now, as
Well,
it stands?
Okay, we just worked at this, just as this meeting was kind of getting started. So we've actually revised the land, or the portion of the development agreement that puts that in your hands right now. So the council can determine what they want for park dedication.
Right, so I think what's in front of the council on this particular development agreement is we need to really amend our motion on it. Have I got a motion on the floor? No? I would like the motion to read approval, but change the park dedication to the notwithstanding the provisions of 140120 of the revised ordinance of the City of Watertown, the City Council will determine now and in what manner the developer will be made to satisfy the park dedication requirement. What I am proposing to you is you either take the option of $10,000 or $1,000 per acre on this, is what they have done in the past, or take the property that they have dedicated for the land, which would go into the third phase of this particular project on Eastwoods. So that's what I'm asking you, you guys to do.
Mayor, we don't know what that property is now, right now, do we?
Absolutely. It's right
We
to,
don't know that.
Right, do you have a picture of that? It
we
was,
can show
it was
you-
a
we
row of
can show
lots
you
that
that.
had a steep slope to it.
I don't have that picture available,
you
but
can
it
put a
is in,
GIS up though.
it takes a while to load. But anyway, it's in phase 2. It's about a block further east of 27th Street here.
I think from what we said, I don't think we want to decide at this point in time what land. I think we should just deal with the dollar part of it and address this land thing at a later
I really
date.
think you should take the dollar so we can get this project moving along. I tell you what, they started this project in February of this year, and it has gone just every step that they've taken, they've had a door closed on them, and this is the 17th edition of the same thing, and they've done each and every one identical, and they've done it the way that they should have done. There's been nothing cut back on it. I think you guys need to agree to take the $10,000 and put that into the park fund, and we really should take these dollars. I agree, John. Put them in a fund that can be used to buy a larger piece of ground for a park. But I really think that you need to approve this agreement tonight by taking the cash and let these folks get moving on so they can get their roads, starting to cut them in this next week.
So we currently don't have a motion on this yet?
So I am going
Since
to
it's a
look
little
for-
more complicated, can I just make the motion that we approve the development agreement with the stipulation that the $10,000 is the park assessment?
Yes, that's a motion.
You were trying to teach him how to get that all spit out, huh?
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
I have a motion by Bill and a second by Beth. Now, is there any more discussion on that?
What's the land area that they are proposing for the park area?
It's 2.2 acres.
Okay, it's 2.2 acres. And has the Park and Rec looked at that site and said, is it a suitable site?
Yes, we had discussion on it and determined that those 3 lots, because there's a park in that vicinity up there already. And I think there's only, it's about 3-4 blocks away?
4 blocks.
4 blocks away, there's already a park there. So we determined that having one that close, and so that's why we decided it'd be better to take the cash so that we could either purchase land, put it in a fund, put a park where it's desirable, rather than just take what they were giving us. Because the property that was given us has a pretty extreme slope to it. So it wasn't really a developable area for lots. So we determined that taking the cash would be the better way out.
Okay, any other questions on that?
I do have one, Mayor. You had just mentioned that there were a lot of hurdles that they had to cross in order to get this done.
Yes.
That concerns me, and I think if that shouldn't be happening.
It shouldn't
And I'd
happen.
like to be able to address what those hurdles were and see how we can help these.
If I may, I will speak to that right now. What we've done, Shane and I have had numerous discussions on how this actually came across, and it's happening to a number of developments. What the city has done as an engineering side, we actually took the conceptual plan, made the engineers draw it up to almost a phase 3 on the conceptual plan. So we knew exactly where the water flows. They have put countless hours of engineering into that. So what we're proposing, rather than come to the planning commission and have it stop there with a resolution, then the folks have to come back and put it in the paper again, wait another entire month, and again run up against the same hurdles with more resolutions and more worries. That then has to go through another level of advertising and taking to the planning commission. So what we're proposing is that instead of having a resolution, When they come to the planning commission, which is going to be held now twice a month, which will help speed the process, they are then put as a table. We will table that item so that they can address it again on the next meeting without going through the entire process of advertising and doing that. I think it's much simpler. Shane, I appreciate the work that you've done on that, and it'll go much, much smoother, and it'll work substantially better than what we're doing right now. Because I think what we have to realize, we're up here at City Hall, time seems to slip by us, and we don't understand that time element. But when you've only got 3 or 4 months of time to build roads and to put that infrastructure in, you can't be messing around every time, coming up and having to advertise, wait 2 weeks, get on the agenda that next month, and then something's wrong, or you miss that exact time frame to get on the agenda. It just turns into weeks and weeks and months and months. So we're addressing it, Bruce, and I think it's coming full circle, and it's going to be much better for the developers. We've had that conversation with them. They're thrilled with the ideas that Shane has brought forward for us. So I'm pretty excited about that. Any other questions? Hopefully I answered it for you, Bruce.
I want to just make one comment, because I do want the council to know that as the engineering, or as the city engineer and representing my staff and being the planning official, I do embrace this clarity, especially on this park dedication issue, because if it goes the way the discussion is happening, it really simplifies how we approach these development agreements. It's going to be a really cut and dried calculation. It will set that at a very simple process for us. We won't have to go to the park board every time we have a development come forward, I think. And then also, it's very, very important that we plan the use of our property, or the areas around the city that are going to get annexed in, and plan your parks accordingly.
I would agree, because you're looking north of 18th Avenue. I truly feel above the new school and the community center, you're going to see development up there. You're going to see that brought into the city. You're going to see east of 15th Street, the same thing. It's just going to happen. And I think the Park and Rec really wants this clarity also. Any other questions? I do have a motion and a second on the floor. This time I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tony. Sorry to steal that from you for a minute, but I knew there was going to be tough.
Consideration of software maintenance agreement renewals for the police department and E911 center.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Scott McMahon, Captain Sports Services with the Watertown Police Department. Tonight, we're coming before you to ask for permission to enter into a contractual agreement with Zerker Technologies out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Zerker Technologies is a public safety software company that provides us the software to basically conduct day-to-day business at the Watertown Police Department, to include 911, mobile out in the vehicles, records management, evidence, and so forth. When we entered into this agreement in 2012, we were joined by the Kyneton County Sheriff's Department, and that 3-year agreement with the two agencies is due beginning in 2016.
Can we have a motion and a second for discussion?
Motion.
Motion by Danforth.
Second.
Second.
Second by Tupper.
Any questions?
Scott, a couple of contractual questions here.
Sure.
There were a few conditions in there where it was a 30-day notice to us. If the city did something that they deemed improper, they could give us a 30-day notice and knock us out of the contract. Just a suggestion, is 30 days enough time? Did you guys consider that?
We did consider it. We did review the contract, as well as the city attorney also reviewed the contract. The last 3 years has gone very well with Zerker Technologies, and we don't foresee that there will be any future problems. The company is a growing company. It just merged with another software company called TriTech, which is a rather large company. And we feel that Zerker Technology has been there for us during our business needs, and we don't anticipate any problem with that. We also know that it's very labor intensive to switch from one software company to another. It's not something that would happen in 30 days, I guess, for that fact. It would take a fair amount of time to do that. So, you know, I think we're comfortable with the contract as it is.
A couple other points on that. There's a 180-day notice also on renewals, I believe. What happens after year 5? I don't think it was identified what happens after year 5.
I don't recall for sure if I guess what I would say, Don, is if it's similar to today's contract, at the end of year 5, we'd have the option of renewing or not renewing. Like I said, at this point in time, we're looking to renew or basically establish a new contract for the next 5 years. We do feel that it's beneficial to do a 5-year contract versus a 3-year, just because of the price that's being offered, which is about a 5% increase year after year. Michael Zerker, the CEO of Zerker Technology, told us back in 2012 that we could always anticipate about a 5% a year increase in price, and he's held true to that figure. Where some of the other software companies, you don't know if it's 5%, 20%, 30%. So,
Scott, I got you've
Can
answered.
Can I just do 2 more quick ones? Just a couple more contractual things. You know, we've had rat holes, rabbit holes. I guess my vermin of choice is a badger hole. 2 other just quick items, and this is maybe late in the game if you guys have negotiated that contract, but the notice section does require written notice. That you might want to consider an electronic version of notice. And lastly, I didn't see anything about if they go bankrupt. What happens? Do we get the source code? What happens if they go under? And I understand in a bankruptcy court here, you're going to have access to that because of the emergency nature of it. But did you consider what would happen if they went away or they had financial trouble?
Yeah, we did have that in today's contract. That was in there. I got to actually look through this, Don, to find the points that you're referring to. But I wanted to say that there was something in here related to financial situations, whether that would be with the city of Watertown not being able to afford those annual payments, or Zerker Technology or some other company affiliated with it filing bankruptcy or some action like that. I wanted to say that it was in here and covered, but
I saw it if we were bankrupt. I didn't see if it happened to them.
okay.
Scott, you've answered a couple questions that I had, but I'm assuming this is something that does not need to go out for bids. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a professional service, so we don't have to bid it.
3 years ago, I'm assuming we did some comparison shopping on this. Oh, we did. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
3 years ago, we were faced with prices that were more expensive at the time than what Zerker Technology was.
Okay.
And we were also having some problems with the softwares meeting our needs. So
Okay.
that caused us to search for other software companies and do some research. But like I said, changing software is a major task to do that because of all the information that's in there. We'd have to go through a data conversion, which would be rather expensive, and it would be very cumbersome.
I'm coming in new to this. It sounds like this group has done its due diligence in the past. It's not like you complete the service. I guess our firm has bid out a lot of governmental and nonprofit work over the years, and I guess that 5% every year, a flat increase, a little bit disappointing as far as I'm concerned.
It would be nice to see some sort of justification for those price increases if we could do that. But I will tell you, Glenn, just for your benefit, we interviewed the folks that represented the different organizations that were that applied to do this for us and supply the software. And it was a lengthy process, and there were a lot of questions asked, and it was unanimous that we agreed to work with these folks with Zerker.
We were looking at considerably less cost, but with the software we're at, it isn't like somebody else can support it. Part of the support fees, I assume, include upgrades to software and other things that get integrated that just become part of the. It isn't just that they're sitting there. If you got a call and something wrong with data, they're also doing upgrades, and they are don't they back up
Well, they don't necess-
Even the hardware, they've got it so it'll be remotely accessed, and they know if a piece of hardware is going bad, then they're aware of that
Yes.
before it even happens, or they've got redundancy so they can take care of that.
And like you said, Councilman Riefenberger, it's not a product that sits stale. You buy it today and it sits there for 3 years, it's the same product. It's an ongoing revision, sometimes month after month, that there's new revisions that they are putting out to the agencies that are using their software. So, there's continuous growth in their product, and I would imagine that they have to recover some of that growth through, maintenance and increases in maintenance.
Scott, is the county on board with this too? I mean, as far as this?
I have not been in conversations with Sheriff Wishart on it, but I would assume that he would, again, just because of the amount of labor that goes into switching from one software company to another. For example, with the sheriff, he has jail and he has his civil packages that he uses through Zerker. If he were to change companies, all that photos of the booking photos, all the information related to charges, all that would have to be go through a data conversion process to a new company. And I mean, like I said, it literally would take 6 months to change everything over.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a little, they didn't quite want to go with the same thing the city was going with when we originally went to Zerker?
Well, at the time, I think, there was, there was questions asked from both sides as far as whether it was the right move to move away from the vendor that we had at that time and go with the new vendor, or try and work with that current vendor at the time to try and resolve the issues and problems that we were having. And I think after many, many meetings, much discussion, it was decided both by the sheriff as well as the chief of police and councilmen and commissioners that the best move at the time was to go with Zerker Technologies.
Well, Scott, I had sent you an email, and I thank you for getting me
Sure.
the information on the previous contract, but it seems really odd from my perspective. I'm with Glenn. It seems really odd that we can look out 5 years and say they're just going to have a price increase of 5% every year. I understand, we talked about their support that they do and the updates we get. That's all
Sure.
in the fee we pay. And the increase, I'm assuming, is to cover their inflation. And to plan on a 5% annual inflation rate seems very odd to me and seems very high.
Although I want to stress that those of you that were on the council, and I think, Mike, you were on there, we were very well aware that it was going to be a 5% increase every year, because one of the things that Scott is mentioning, we were getting increases of 20% and 30%, and they were not out of line for that software. That's one of the reasons why we went with Zerker, because we could actually budget that. We knew what our costs were going to be for the software. So 5 may seem strange that it's hooked up every year, but with this particular one, it cost us $1 million to put the information in, and almost the same dollar amount for the county. So it's not something that we need to take lightly, but
I
we
think-
were very aware.
No,
We were
I
very
think
aware
one of the
of
things that's maybe
5%.
missed there, Mike, in the concept of that, it's not like it's just a fixed, I've got this one thing and it's static and it's a 5% raise on that. This product, because of constant development on it, it's growing, so that's expanding, so a larger expansion in the cost of supporting that as this thing grows into a bigger, because integrate, one of the problems you had with the original ones, you had all these different parts and pieces that didn't integrate with Hoot, and you fought with that, and you couldn't get data to transfer back and forth. Well, as they see these issues other places, they have to, integrate and upgrade and get those things done. So it's not like it's the same today as it was tomorrow. Part of that growth is within the actual product, isn't it?
Well, that's true, Bill. Public safety software it's designed in such a manner, in my belief anyway, that they break their product up into components. If you want, CAD, or if you want mobile, or if you want records, or you want evidence, you can buy software in those different components. For an agency our size, we need all of those components to conduct business. One thing that we didn't talk about is our initial investment into the software. Our initial investment was fairly large. It was almost $500,000 to cover that initial purchase of the software, and then there was annual maintenance agreements every year after that. Now we're just talking, we already own, well, use the software. So from this point forward, we're not having to make that initial purchase again. We're just having to continue to pay maintenance, which is far cheaper than if we were to look at a new company and have to pay that upfront cost of switching everything over and buying new software.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I will look for council action. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. I think at this time, these guys have done an outstanding job for us, these scouts. I know they got school in the morning. We don't want to hold you up. And it is 8:30. I think at this time, if you guys want to be excused, you sure can. We've got some other things going on, and I absolutely appreciate everything you've done. And Citizens Day is wonderful. One of these days, well, not so far from now, we're going to see you sitting there in Scott's chair and my chair and your guys' chair and finance, engineers. It's pretty cool. Thanks for coming, you guys. We do appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.
Hey, Bruce, go grab me a Diet Coke, will you? Okay. All right, I'm going to move on, guys. Number 15, consideration of bids for the police department patrol cars. Bid tab was currently handed out. Scott, if you want to take care of this for me.
Yes, you can have a car. No, I'm just.
Okay, on October 10th and 17th, we advertised for patrol vehicles, for bids for a patrol vehicle, and we had that bid opening on October 30th here at City Hall. We did receive one bid for the patrol vehicle, and I can go through those once we get to discussion point.
Okay, what I'll do is I will look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Mike, second by Beth. Any questions, yeah, for Scott?
Mayor, I will recuse myself from this discussion and vote. Conflict of interest.
Explain to us whose car this is and what the deal is.
Sure, we currently have a K-9 vehicle that was purchased by the Attorney General's office, or we received funding to purchase this. It's a 2008 Crown Victoria, and it has over 100,000 miles on it, and we're starting to see some repairs that need to be done on it. So we've been in contact with the Attorney General's office again, and we were notified recently that we've been recipient of a $30,000 grant funded by the Attorney General's office. And our intent is to purchase a new vehicle with that $30,000 so that we can have a good vehicle for our K-9 officer.
Looks
Okay,
like you spent
questions?
most of it then. Scott, looks like you pretty well spent most of it then, right?
Pretty much. We did get a bid for the police utility vehicle. The K-9 officer specifically wanted an SUV type vehicle, and we did get one bid from Watertown Ford for a Police Explorer vehicle. That bid came in at $28,790. There were some options that we needed to have with this because of the fact that it is a K-9 vehicle. We wanted to make sure that it had air conditioning to the rear where the K-9 will be transported during the daytime hours. So that was an addition, and then also remote start and remote locks so that if the car needed to be hooked to like the temperature sensor in the vehicle so that it would start the car and run the air conditioner, so there's no chances of having a problem that would cause the dog to suffer, heat extreme or something like that, extreme heat. But sometimes you see those types of articles in the paper, and we needed these extra options to avoid having that happen here.
What happens to the old one?
The old car?
Yeah.
That, like I said, was a purchase through Attorney General funds, so that will go back to the Attorney General's office unless they tell us to do something differently. But at this point in time, the plan is that vehicle go back to the South Dakota Attorney General's office.
Scott, how was the spec written? I mean, are we writing a spec in this particular case? Why would we get one bid? Is it written in such a manner that that's really all we're gonna get, or?
No, I think, there certainly could have been room for other types of vehicles. I think the bid specs that we put together were, very near to what the state specs are. So, I suppose that somebody could have bid a Dodge Durango or some type of a Chevy vehicle. We did, request an all-wheel drive and the engine size and so forth. I think there's other models that could have fit that. I don't think it's specific to a Ford Explorer.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Number 16, authorization for the mayor to sign a professional service agreement with HR Green for the wastewater ultraviolet disinfection improvements project in the amount of $48,000. Shane, if you want to help us out?
Yeah, Howard R. Green is a consulting engineering firm that was hired to complete the plans and specifications for the wastewater treatment facility with their ultraviolet disinfection improvements project. Previously, the council has approved and awarded UV equipment in the amount of $334,000. We also have had a letting and award of the demo and installation of that equipment in the amount of $236,180. So what's before you now is to extend the contract with the consulting engineer beyond those services into the construction phase. Those would include project management, shop drawing review, interpreting the specs and doing some on-site inspections, all the way through final completion and punch list, and they would provide engineering record drawings. So the schedule of fees is not to exceed $48,000 for those services.
Okay, so at this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
Second.
Motion by Beth, second by Don. Any questions for Shane? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion, or I'm sorry, council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 17, authorization for mayor to sign a supplemental letter agreement for additional services with SEH Inc. for Roby Creek FIS map update in the amount of $4,600. Shane, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, their SEH was our consulting engineer working on that project for us to review and enhance or revise the floodplain maps for the Roby Creek project. We are at task 7, which is the Lomar closeout services phase. Basically, this is going to allow them to assist us with our public meetings that we need to have in the near future to present that information to the public and complete that process so that everybody knows. And we want to certainly lean on their knowledge and expertise through that public hearing process. So this would extend their contract in the amount of $4,600.
Okay, so at this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Randy. Any questions for Shane on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 18, consideration of joint funding agreement with the United States Geological Survey, USGS, for operation and maintenance of the Upper Big Sioux River Flood Forecasting System for 2016. Again, Shane.
Yeah, this is an annual agreement that comes before the council each year at about this time, I would assume. The city's share of the maintenance agreement for the flood gauging stations is $21,905. It is within our budgeted amount that we had for this coming 2016 budget year. So with that, I guess I would entertain any questions or recommend approval.
Okay, I think what I'll do then, Shane, is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Glenn, second by Bruce. Any questions that you have for Shane on this?
The question, is the county and the Lake and Pesca Water Project District on board with their portion as well?
I'm assuming so. I can't speak for their boards.
I'm sure they are. This is something that we've done over and over and over. This actually takes the level of the river, knows where the flooding comes from, where we're standing, in in the springs.
How does these costs compare? I mean, I know it says it's covered in the budget. How does it compare? Is it pretty consistent?
It's pretty consistent.
I mean, I know we've had it every year. I just don't remember what it showed previously.
Is the assumption, if we are approving this, is the assumption that the other parties are willing? Is that what?
I would assume. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any question that they won't be on board. Okay, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 19, consideration of change order number 3 to the contract with Gray Construction for the wastewater alkalinity feed addition project, increasing the contract amount $4,243. Shane?
Okay, this project you've seen, this is the third time you've seen a change order regarding the same area of the project. This is a portion of the project where they had to move some sludge lines to do these alkalinity improvements. While they were doing that, they found out that they had some conflicts, so they rerouted those pipes. Then they found some debris that was within the excavation area. This final change order then pays for the material that it took to replace the debris that was excavated and removed from the project. So this amount is $4,243. The staff recommends payment as funds are available in the sewer enterprise cash reserves and will certainly pay for this additional cost.
Okay, so at this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Bruce, second by Bill. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I was wondering why, Pat, you were sleeping back there. You've been waiting for this last one. Number 20, approval of employee group health insurance plan renewal for 2016. Shelley, you're up.
I'll go fast. Yeah. Is that a motion? As the mayor said, we did get the renewals for 2016 from Wellmark. As you can see on the information provided to you, the overall 2.92% increase in the premiums is well below the national average. It is well within the 2016 budget. What I am asking for is a motion to renew the 2016 health insurance benefits with Wellmark with the renewal rates as shown above.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll ask for that.
Can I also, in the same motion, if you would approve the finance office to transfer any excess health insurance funds to the restricted cash account for the health insurance deductible reimbursement program as you have in the 2 previous years?
Okay, now I'll look for a motion in a second.
So moved.
Motion by Randy, second by Beth. In the motion that you wrote there, Shelley,
Who seconded?
that was Beth.
So how much money are we transferring and how big is that fund growing to?
We don't know how much excess. That's something that we're negotiating at this time, and we have not come up with an agreement with all 3 of the unions on the employee-employer portion. Hopefully within the next week before open enrollment starts, we'll have that, and then I can give you a better understanding of how much that'll be. Right now, we have about $115,000 in there. Through the 3rd quarter of 2015. We have 1 quarter left of 2015, and we're anticipating about $10,000.
I
So it'll
know
be
what the, I
105.
haven't been party to any of the negotiations. I know what the intention of that fund was so you could use it to keep the deductible from growing, but are we gonna work ourselves in a position where we're gonna say that money's there and we want something additional that it gets used for?
Absolutely not. I think that was put into a restricted account for the insurance, so that is restricted, and we would not be able to use that for anything else.
But we may have to, we couldn't end up negotiating paying a bigger percentage than we currently
Well,
do?
I think during the negotiations, they of course are always asking for more and more and more, but I think we're very comfortable with the insurance plan that we currently have.
I think it's more than fair, obviously, but that's,
Yeah.
And that'll be something, if we would ever increase those premiums, that has to come before the council and get approved, and then how all that works out would have to be approved as well. So, I mean,
Right.
it's not like it would happen without any
No,
any
and-
council weighing in
And
at
the
all.
insurance group would get together and take a look at
Correct.
it if they want to bump the,
Yep.
anything around on that. So
Yep.
pretty much leaving as is. So we do have a motion and a second already on the floor. Any other questions for Shelley on this?
What was the percentage increase this past year, Shelley, you know right offhand? Just
I mean, for 2015?
Yeah.
It was 6%? Yeah, about 6. And I believe it was right at
Okay.
that 8% the year before.
we haven't, there's no change this time in deductibles, but I think some of those rates, to get them down to that, was deductibles had to be raised up too.
Yeah, I think you actually probably budgeted more than 2.92%, but it was a real thrill to get that. Yes. And, we didn't have the big claims that we had last year in our plan. So I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 21, is there any old business that we need to discuss? Hearing none, is there any new business that we need to discuss?
I've got one comment to make, Mayor. Last Tuesday night, several of us were at the public safety gathering at the Elks. I forget exactly what it's called. I just want to thank and recognize Margaret Snyder was named the employee or the volunteer of the year for her work to the police department. So I'd like to recognize Margaret.
And she also makes fantastic cookies, and I got on her mailing list through Connie Cutler, so when she takes them over to the police station, I'll get that note and I'll send it to you guys. I would like to recognize Spencer Tanaik. Did I say that pretty close? All right. Well, Spencer is our new department head with the IT department, and he comes from the computer field down here just south of town.
Connecting Point.
Connecting Point.
Yep.
Thank you. It's getting late. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Spencer. Don't go into too much detail. We don't want that much time.
I was a Cub Scout. No, I'm originally born in Omaha, but grew up in Lake Preston, and moved up here about 8 years ago, and started working at Connecting Point, around 5.5 years ago, and I guess there's not much else to say. Been working myself up, with the technical stuff for quite a while, and I guess I don't know what
Yeah,
else
well,
to
we're
say.
excited to have you on board. This is Spencer's first day today.
It's a long one.
Yeah, long day. And
I think I'll come back.
okay, we're planning on putting up another office upstairs for Spencer, so he can have that. And at that particular time, if we can get Pete over here, so we can get the whole IT department together and working as a team, it'll be really good.
I think Ray's
With
got
Ray's
room in there.
help.
He can just push some stuff aside and fit him in there, don't you think?
Yeah,
We,
he's already done that a
yeah,
little bit.
we
yeah.
did good. We did
Yeah.
that today. I am excited about getting to gel the group together. I think we
Sure.
had some good conversations today, and it's exciting. You know,
I will tell you,
get
I
a-
had
get
I
a
had-
department going here.
I had to stop the library because Mike asked for you to come over there. He said he's got a room for him, didn't he? I'm not kidding. I said, nope, not going to be going there. So welcome aboard, Spencer. We appreciate you being here and wish you many, many years of good luck here at the city.
All right, thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Mayor, I got an item. Quick.
Oh,
Two
okay.
items. I'm gonna make it quick.
All right.
If you haven't had a chance to drive out by the new ball diamonds, do that. They're moving a lot of dirt out there. I think they're gonna be done with earth moving in how many days?
You know, they had 21 days is what they had planned on. I think it's probably about another 10, 12 days, and they should have that whipped out.
Sounds about right. We'll have an update report tomorrow at noon.
Yep. So, and the other, can we get an update on the new community center? Progress on that? Haven't really heard a lot.
You know, it's going extremely well. They've got the sidewalls up on the short walls are going up. They have the taller walls that are over by the pool are going in extremely strong. They will actually, once they get this thing enclosed and the weather has held up really nice for them, they'll start digging the pool probably in March, April, so they can start working on that. Everything is really on schedule. It's just amazing when you go up there, all the guys working and moving around. Does anybody have anything they want to add to it? Because it's incredible, and I would encourage all of you on the council to go up there, visit with Jason, and get a helmet on and have him take you for a little tour. Anything else? I did get some pictures of the softball diamond. I was planning on giving them to Ray and have them put up there, but Troy Van Duzen from the police department has a drone. He took some pictures of it for me, and then also Greg Hansen has a drone. He went up there and took some pictures for me, so I got all kinds of pictures and videos that'll be coming, and I'll probably post those on our website. You can take a look at the videos up there. No, we aren't going that high. Just so you. Yeah. Sure. It's not magic.
It's magic. It is magic.
I will tell you that on the news on the airport, we're expecting very good things. That time frame will be stopped here shortly. We should know there's at least 3 to 4 airlines that are looking at Watertown, and we've been in great conversation with them, anywhere from little rocket ships that go 400 and some miles an hour to 50-seat aircraft that are in that 380 miles an hour, and they're both pretty cool. Yeah. Louis Air Service, he said. Any liaison member reports? I'm looking at you, Randy. Nothing?
Nothing this week.
Okay. Any need to go into executive session? I don't have any tonight. I would entertain a motion, a second to adjourn. Okay, Randy and Glenn, all in favor say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.